There is something that happens when you leave the hospital after loss. The doors close behind you, and the world just keeps moving like nothing happened. Like you didn't just go through something that has changed every single thing about who you are. And nobody tells you what's happening inside of your body. Nobody tells you that your biochemistry has literally shifted, that there are reasons, real physiological reasons, why you cannot just think your way through this, why you wake at 3 a.m., why your chest feels tight, why you feel like you're drowning one moment and completely numb the next. That's what today's conversation is about. My guest, Atara Parkinson, is a licensed therapist, an integrative practitioner, and a mother who has lived the gap in care firsthand. And she is going to explain in a way that I promise will make so much click for you what is actually happening inside your body when you are stuck in grief, not just emotionally, biochemically. This is the conversation I wish someone had handed me. Let's get into it. Welcome to the podcast, The Intersection of Pregnancy Loss, Fertility, Trauma, and Purpose. Having the conversations that should have been happening all along. Today, I have with me Atara Parkinson. Atara is a licensed marriage and family therapist and has been practicing in the field of mental health for 14 years. She's continued her education by becoming a certified integrative practitioner. Her current passions include holistic healing, supporting postpartum mamas, brain spotting, therapeutic intensives, and educating on the role of minerals for brain health and nervous system regulation. Revitalization and rebalancing clients are core goals for Atara's work. Thank you for joining, Atara.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's absolutely my pleasure, and I'm really excited to have you here today as well. We had a quick chat before we started recording, so that I know there's a
Mm,
lot of value that you're going to be able to bring to
mm.
this conversation today. Did you want to share a little about yourself and yeah, your
Yeah,
journey?
yeah, absolutely. So, my journey that's relevant to probably all you listening here is I am now a mother of four, and three of my children were NICU babies. So, they were in the neonatal intensive care unit. And that really shaped how I entered motherhood, and it shaped how then I then recovered in my postpartum with all of my kiddos, but particularly the first three. And what I really saw through these experiences, was a gap in care. And that gap was actually really vivid. There's this really vivid moment that's been coming up in the last couple of months as I've talked about this more and more. And that gap was my firstborn was in the NICU, and I am discharged, and we lived about an hour and a half from the hospital. And thankfully there was housing support, which not all hospitals have, for families that are caring for a child in the NICU or in the ICU. So we were able to stay there, but it was a couple blocks away. And at this point, I'm 32 hours. It was a 32-hour labor, and I had third degree tears. And I don't know how many stitches. I've been dying to call the hospital and actually ask, "Whoa, how many stitches did I get?" It was a lot. I remember it was a lot. And my husband is rolling me out of the hospital to go to this housing, and the security guard stops us and he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You can't take the wheelchair." And we were like, "Oh no." And he's, "Yeah, it can't leave hospital grounds. It has to stay here." And we were like, "What are we supposed to do?" He said, "You got to walk or you got to figure it out." And yeah, and that to me, now looking back, this was 10 years ago, but to me represented this gap that happens in our culture of almost as if once the baby is out, mom disappears. And so that is really the passion, the drive behind my work to make moms visible wherever you are in the journey. If you're still in the TCC part, if you are postpartum, if you are pregnant currently, I want you to know that you are seen, that you are important, and this isn't just about baby, it's about a pair. You are also being born as a mother, if you will. And so that's a little bit about my background. And as you said, I work in the field of mental health, but I also see our mental health as not just being here or in our mind, our brain. As I say, there's no line across our neck that separates our physical body from our mental health, that there's an interconnection here. What is happening in our physical body, what we're putting in our physical body, how our physical body is responding and connecting with our environment, all of this is important. And then it also informs and shapes our mental health.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. It just gave me
Mm-hmm.
goosebumps, your experience, because it was like I can actually picture that playing out. And like you said,
Yeah.
there is no, you're in the hospital, you do the thing, you have your experience, whatever that is. But then as soon as
Mm-hmm.
you're ready to go, it's like the hospital's okay, you're done. They almost,
Exactly.
it's like they wipe their hands of you,
Yeah.
of your experience. And
Mm.
you were at the door in the wheelchair, but then beyond those doors, you're on your own. Like you can't take
Right.
that. So
Right.
figure that out for yourself.
Yes.
There is no continuation of care beyond those doors. And I felt that firsthand for myself in my
Mm.
pregnancy loss experience. And I know there's so many women that
Yeah.
feel that disconnect
Mhm.
in care. And
Yes.
I love that you said your mission is to make women visible, because that it
Mm.
almost feels like you're completely invisible when you leave the
Mm.
medical system.
Yes. I got chills when you said that because that is what it feels like. And that's so destructive, right? If you're experiencing a loss, a trauma, or even a birth, just a birthing experience in general, we need that continuation of care. I think it's so essential.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it doesn't just finish at the hospital doors. It doesn't,
Yes.
there's so much. And like we've said before we started recording as well, generally, if you have a healthy baby at home with you, you receive some continuation of care in that postpartum period.
Mhm.
But for a lot of women who are obviously going through pregnancy loss, that also finishes at the
Yeah.
hospital doors. Like you are
Mhm.
left to navigate, like you've said, the grief, the hormones, everything without actually realizing what is
Yes.
happening.
Yeah.
You're like, I just feel like this is enormous. And
Mm.
also then potentially layer in trauma in that
Mhm.
experience. And if they've not had anyone with them in that moment to say, this is
Mm.
all going to be okay,
Mm.
this is what's happening to
Mhm.
you, this is what's potentially could happen outside when you leave.
Yeah.
Of course it's going to feel huge, because not
Yeah.
once has your experience been validated and how big it
Mhm.
actually feels. And then you feel like this emotional like wreck afterwards as
Yeah.
well.
And as we were talking before too, you pointed out, right, that there's still so much not said about this experience, about pregnancy loss. There's so much that goes unspoken. And this it's big level, right? As a culture, government programming, this kind of stuff. But then that also trickles down, doesn't it? And it informs and normalizes what we do or do not talk about at our dinner table or at a family event, right? And maybe once in a while someone asks. Most of the time people don't, I think, because they're afraid. And then often when people ask, I have found they don't know what to do with that or they don't know how to respond. And then we get those well meaning perhaps, but responses that feel icky or that fall flat with us, "Oh, at least you can get pregnant," or "It could be worse. I'm so glad you're at least you're alive," right? These kinds of statements, instead of someone just being with us or even being curious about our experience, asking if we wanna talk about it, asking if we're how we're doing. These kinds of things can be so helpful and restorative to moms in that season.
Yeah, and it is often met with those platitudes because
Mm,
I think it is that uncomfortability. Like the people don't want to
mhm.
go beyond,
Yeah.
even there's the "Are you okay" days, like
Mm,
for mental health, but
mhm.
still a lot of people don't know how to take it beyond that question.
Yeah.
Okay, what actually comes back? What am I going to do with that response? How
Yeah.
do I navigate that? So when obviously talking about pregnancy loss and all of that that goes along with it, when you open up that conversation, or if someone does become
Mhm.
curious, it's almost like there's hesitation, like they're curious, but they're like only
Sure.
to a certain degree can they hold that
Mm,
and actually witness you in that. So I feel
right.
like having more conversations like this can hopefully
Mhm.
start to shift, like you said, those dinner table conversations or something, a
Mm,
conversation that you have over a coffee with a friend,
yeah.
or even just to know, like I said to you before we started recording, having a friend that
Mm,
was going through a miscarriage in real time with me.
mm. Yeah.
There are only certain people that you need support, you need someone there with you to help you through these times, but
Mhm.
you've really got to be almost 150% certain who you're opening up
Mm,
to so that you get the response that you actually need in that moment, and not just the platitudes or such and such went through this, they did that, so maybe you can
mm.
try this.
That's a
Like,
good example. That the helpful, the advice that we always that's also not what we're needing or hoping for in that moment. Absolutely. Yeah. And to your point, Brene Brown does a wonderful job to talking about this. And she says that in order for me to connect with you deep down in that dark place, in that hole, I have to be willing to access that within myself. And boy,
yes.
does that feel scary sometimes, doesn't it? Ooh, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I'm ready for that. But that is what's required. And that is what's needed, that vulnerability, that intimacy to enter into that. And I love that you brought up kind of the topic of isolation as well, because when we have a doubt, right? Like, I doubt my body can do this, or I doubt this will ever happen for me. This leads to shame, and then shame leads to isolation.
Mm.
And that's, as you're pointing out, a dangerous or scary place to be, because in that isolation, the shame often is able to get magnified or amplified. And so, what's so important in that time period is to find connection, safety, right? We're literally designed, created this way to be safe in community with one another. And let's caveat with that and say we need to also do that, as you mentioned, in ways that are safe for us or that feel safe for us. So finding people or safe spaces can be so important, whether that's a therapist, a friend that you trust, or just someone that you know that can hold space really well and be a great listening ear without jumping into some of those platitudes or advice.
Yeah, because sometimes you definitely don't need that. And sometimes it is just maybe you don't want to say anything at all. And for someone to be
Mm,
okay and comfortable with silence, because a lot of
yes.
the time, just the silence itself is where a lot of people will
Mm,
jump in because they're like, oh, this is awkward.
yeah,
I can't can't
right.
be here.
So can't tolerate that. Yeah.
Can't tolerate that silence. And I love that you brought in what Brene Brown says, because
Mm,
it's something that I teach a lot, is that we can't
mm,
help people without being able to be in that place or witness that place ourselves. We can only
Yeah.
help to the extent of what we can witness. And it's so true. Like, even when you're thinking about putting yourself into those conversations, even the Are You Okay Day ones, the mental health ones, like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to, it's, you can just listen. You don't have
Yeah.
to, it's not trying to fix. But then also, are you okay with what
Mm-hmm.
then comes up for
Mm-hmm.
yourself? So then, what do you, maybe what tools and what things do you have in place for you? Because that's also, hearing someone else's experience can absolutely trigger something in us too, but
Yeah.
then to have something in place for the
Mm.
healer, the supporter, the listener as well.
Yes.
Um,
Said.
but only because I've just like, on that topic of the mental health, like there was so many conversations that I had. We used to own a supermarket,
Mm.
and so many conversations I had with people that came through the checkout with
Uh-huh.
health issues, mental health issues, but they just said to me, they're like, I feel like I can just talk to you. I feel like I can open up to you. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay, because I've done work for me. I've experienced
Mm.
depression. I know what,
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with depression and high functioning anxiety. Like, I've been in two places at once where
Yeah.
it is really difficult to live.
Mm.
And I've developed things for myself for those places. Obviously, going through my pregnancy loss, they were also then tools that I could reuse and adapt to that, to healing through
Mm.
that experience as well. But then having people open up, and just random strangers talking to me about their health issues, because they
Mm.
couldn't do that with anyone else beyond that. Oh, hi, how are you? Yeah, I'm good, thanks. And then you're just
Right.
like, but I'm not really good.
Yes.
So allowing them to go, oh no, actually I've had a pretty crappy day. And then you're like,
Right.
okay, what happened? And be able to
Yeah.
become, like you said, curious, and allow them to expand, allow them to explore what's actually coming up for them. But I also love that you said, which is again why I love what you do. There's so much when we talk about mental health, like obviously going
Mm.
through pregnancy loss, it is
Yeah.
mental. You've said mental, physical, spiritual. It's all of
Yep.
it. And there is
Yep.
not this line that goes through, from just like separating your head from the rest of your
Yeah.
body. And when
Yeah.
we talk about mental health, it's literally
Mm.
only the brain. I'm
Yeah.
like, and it's separate. The brain is separate.
Mhm.
But like you said, there is this constant communication between your brain and your body. It's always on. The channels are always in
Always.
motion, and
Yes.
we cannot move through our healing
Mhm.
only focusing on one thing. And like you said before, it's a thread.
Yeah.
That's only one thread of what we actually have to do to move through
Yeah.
our healing.
Right.
Do you want to maybe expand a little bit more on that for
Of
me?
course. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. This is what really wakes me up or impassions me, right, in my day is getting to talk about this because so often we uh separate this out. And we have a specialist for this, a specialist for that. And they're not communicating, they're not often talking with each other. And then you could take that a step further in is your medical team talking to your mental health providers and your pastor or priest or whoever, your spiritual leader, also part of that and asking about those elements of who you are. Because again, we are interconnected beings. We have our physical body, we have our mind, or what you could also call your soul, your psyche, your will, your attitude in life. And then your spiritual component, which is your spirit, which is whatever your belief system and connected to the creator. Or so all of these are impacted when we go through a major life event. And so when we look at just one singular aspect, people will often say things like, my doctor, what they tried didn't work, or I went to therapy for years and it didn't help. We'll hear statements like this all of the time. And the reason I think we say that is because, yeah, we were looking at one part of the aspect of you and who you are, and to really have healing, to really be able to move through something that was traumatic or difficult, we need to be incorporating all of who we are for the best results. Doesn't mean that just one isn't going to get us anywhere. Like you said, maybe we learn tools or we do and implement something different, but it's going to move the needle only so far. And so the best work, the most effective work that I do with clients is when we have the space to integrate all of these three elements or layers of our humanity together.
Yeah. And it's so important because, it was actually something that I witnessed firsthand. So obviously not
Mm,
having the support moving out of the hospital after the procedure that I had to have in the hospital,
mm,
being
mhm,
sent home, being postpartum, not being
mm,
aware that was also happening in my body as well as the
mm,
grief, but then only being told, keep an eye on your mental health.
mm,
So obviously, then you're like, okay, cool, I'll keep an eye on my mental health. But then you're in a
mm,
spiral, like I said to you before, I ended up down that slippery slope of going back into depression. After my dad died, that's where I was when I was 19 for a whole year.
oh, yeah.
I I knew what it was like there. I tried to recreate his life with me in that time. And I was like, I'd
Mm,
wake up, I'd make my toast the same way. I'd make my drink the
mm,
same way. I would not go. And then I started to remove myself even further
mm,
from people because I'm like, I don't want to talk to them.
mm.
So my husband started to see, because he met me on the tail end of that. And so my
Okay.
husband started to see what that part of me was like. So when I was going through the miscarriage, he was like, I can see this happening again. But for you, you can't see that. You think you're still
Mm,
okay. You think that everything is still okay. But then also, I had this realization moment and I was like, okay, maybe what he is seeing is. So I did go and see
mm,
a psychologist at the time. But then when I was starting to realize, okay, working out my mental health, my
mm.
physical health was declining. And
Oh,
I was like, I didn't realize because everything was, again, it's so connected. You can't just work on
mhm,
one thing and then just expect everything to be okay. I ended up having to, again, do a lot of work with my
mm.
GP, she's an integrative doctor as well, and just
Oh, amazing.
absolutely amazing for me
Yeah.
in that recovery
Mm,
process. But in that, I realized you cannot separate any part of your body. There was so much of my mental health that was connected to the way that my physical body was
mhm,
recovering, and vice
mhm,
versa. There was a lot of
mhm.
things that were connected from my physical body to my brain. And the fact that I had experienced trauma in that whole experience,
Okay.
I wasn't aware until I saw my psychologist that it was
Mm,
trauma. She
mhm,
validated it, and I was like, okay, that's this huge weight lifted off my shoulders. But then also,
mhm.
what do I do with that now? And again,
Yeah.
you can't talk your way out of that. My physical body, then, until I understood what I needed to do, it was a couple of years later, and I was literally bouncing between fight and flight and shut down. I'd get to a point
Okay.
of like my heart racing. I was like, I just wanted to run away, but then I'd become
Mm,
paralyzed.
mm,
I couldn't
okay.
move. I couldn't swallow. I
Mhm.
couldn't speak. Nothing would move.
Wow. Wow.
So I was frozen. And
Mm,
when I started to see that pattern, I was like, okay, you cannot, again, it's just reinforcing that story for me. I'm like, you cannot just work on one thing and
Right.
expect everything to be okay. So it was only because I was witnessing it, but it was unfolding in parts. So it
Mm,
was over years that it was happening.
mm,
If I had someone on the other side of me to validate what was going on, to explain, yes, you're going to need your mental health supported, you're
mhm,
going to need your physical health supported, your nervous system. So much of that time that I spent like piecing things together could have been
mm.
taken away, and it could have helped my healing journey a lot more.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I'm thinking about one of the reasons we're probably so passionate about this topic is because we both lived it. Meaning I'm with you. This was pre-babies in my world, but having a complete physical collapse in my mid-20s when I should be full of energy in life and going, "What is happening?" And really my physical body was telling me no more. We cannot go on like this. We're not doing this anymore. You can't abuse us this way anymore, is how I interpret what my body was trying to say. And unfortunately, it took that level of dramatics for my mind to get on board and go, oh, okay, we something's got to give. We need to shift how I'm engaging in life around me. And I think that what we're saying when we're saying talk therapy isn't the end all be all. I want to speak to that really specifically because talk therapy is great and we can do a lot in there. Like narrative and storytelling and being held and witnessed by someone is so important. And I want to say we are using or we're hanging out in a very specific part of the brain when we're doing that. And that is the prefrontal cortex. And that's it, but there's all this other brain. If you can go look at a picture of a brain right now and you'll see the different parts labeled and you'll see what I'm talking about. And there's this whole underneath and this back part that is not the prefrontal cortex. And so what we're saying and what we're emphasizing is that when we're engaging in whether it's somatic therapy, whether it's a group breath work, whether it's a sound bath, right? All these different kinds of experiences that we can have, we're actually helping engage a different part of the brain and body. And that is the midbrain or subcortical brain, we could say. And that is what you and I are talking about and pointing to right now is yes, that prefrontal cortex is important. And there's an and there, right? And the and is that if we want to really get to healing, let's also look at these other parts. And I'm going to take that even a step further, right? And say, it blows people's minds when I say this, and it did for me too, that the body actually sends more messages to the brain. So from here, our organs, our nervous system, all this other stuff below, right below our brain, is sending more signals and messages up to the brain than the brain is sending to the body. And when people hear that, they're like, wait, what? How could that possibly be true? Because we are taught such the opposite.
Yeah.
We're taught this is the signal center and the message center, and it's the guider and leader. And actually, that's really a big misconception. And so when we can start to incorporate, honor, listen, what is this message? Why is my heart racing? What could my body be telling me right now? The quicker we're going to go through the process and get to a better place.
If you support women, I want you to think about something for a moment now. A woman sits in front of you. She may be months or even years beyond her pregnancy loss. She looks okay. She's functioning. Maybe she's even telling you she's ready to try again. But something tells you there's more going on, and you find yourself wondering, what am I missing? This is exactly why I created my next free live masterclass, the mental health care gap for bereaved mothers, including postpartum. because pregnancy loss doesn't end when the medical event does. There is a woman whose body has experienced pregnancy, a nervous system that may still be responding to what happened, a postpartum experience that can go completely unrecognized, a mental health journey, and potentially a future fertility journey. When we've only been taught to see one piece of that picture, it's incredibly difficult to know what she actually needs next. That's what I want to change for you in this masterclass. I want you to leave able to see the whole woman, to recognize the gaps you may not have even known were there, to understand why some women aren't moving forward in the way we'd expect, and to feel clearer and more confident about what you're seeing, the questions you're asking, and where your role fits in her care. Because sometimes the difference isn't caring more, it's knowing what to look for. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. If you're a healthcare professional, therapist, practitioner, birth worker, or even a lost mum, or simply someone whose work brings you into contact with women, I'd love to have you in the room. It's completely free. Join me live for the Mental Health Care Gap for Bereaved Mothers. Head to the show notes to save your place. It will be live inside my community. Come in knowing something is missing and leave knowing what to look for. Let's change what we see so together we can change how women are cared for after pregnancy loss. I actually, in something that I did, a masterclass that I ran, or it was some educational thing that I created, and I did some
Mhm.
research, and I found that it was, and I don't know if the percent is accurate in that sense. It was they had said it was 80% communication from the body, 20% communication from the brain. So
That's about what I've heard too. Yep.
yeah, so it was this, and then that, like when you said that, it blew your mind when you found out, that blew my mind. But then it also
Yeah.
reaffirmed everything that I was
Mm,
like, this is
yes.
exactly why I do what I do, because it's not even
Mm,
just talking about our experience and trying to rationalize it, trying to understand it and conceptualize it. And
mm,
it's like, it's actually going, okay, I feel something too. What is that sensation? Why am I constantly feeling like I'm short of breath? Why
mm.
I was gasping like all the time. And my mum would often say, she goes, oh, that was a big sigh. And I was like,
Yeah.
there was this always this, like I was trying to catch my breath all the time. Like I was really
Mm,
shallow breathing. And there was all these physical signs of something being
mm,
off in my body that I
mhm,
wasn't able to understand because I didn't have someone to help me understand what was happening. But when I obviously, like you said, you get into these positions and roles, these supporting roles, because of what you have experienced, was only because I had physically felt that in my body. And I was like,
mm.
no amount of talk therapy accessed that point, because
Yes.
I had done years of therapy, like 5+ years of therapy.
Mm,
None of that was able to access where that was coming from. And
exactly.
I love that you said, I would go Google a brain, because this is essentially where the brain then connects to the body. And that's essentially
Yep.
where this experience is
Mhm.
stored. And
Mm,
we need then to help. And it's potentially adding like a multidisciplinary approach. Like you're adding
right.
things to your healing. You're adding
Yes.
stuff so that you can access then that part
Yeah.
of the brain that is,
Mm,
it's telling you there's something
yeah.
missing.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and I love how practical you went with that because I do have clients that come in all the time and they're really frustrated, right? By their symptoms, by that out of breath, by that racing heart, by that panic that wells up and they're like, Oh, I just wish that didn't happen. And what it can be so empowering is when we start to talk about, what do you think is going on there? What do you think your body is trying to communicate or trying to tell you? And when we start to look at it that way, it encourages this alignment, right? And partnership with the body instead of this like push and pull or almost fight right within ourselves, which generally is not very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I was at. I was in that place for years, just
Mm,
trying to push aside what was happening because I didn't understand it. And there also got to a point where my mum had actually told me, she goes, "You look like you're protecting your heart." Like your shoulders
yeah.
had curled in.
Yeah.
And when I was like, no, that's not right. But then I saw like an image, whether it was a photo or in the mirror, I was like, oh my gosh, I am. And
Mm-hmm.
the moment I tried to stand up straight, there was pain because I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
my body, it hurts to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
But then also, again, that and adds another layer because there's tension, there's potentially trauma, emotions, all of
Mm-hmm.
that sort of in your body. So then when you start to shift and change its posture,
Mm.
there
Yeah.
is the possibility of opening up maybe grief or emotions
Mm.
in that as well. But there was a training that I actually sat in on. I can't remember what it was, but it actually had gone through the body's posture and essentially
Mm.
the more you don't, it was pretty much saying the more you don't acknowledge what's happening, your body starts
Mm.
to shift the way that it holds itself. And then
Yes.
what happens is also then it changes because then that's why I was getting shorter breath. It changes the
Mm-hmm.
way that it sends
Yep.
signals, it changes the way that you can access oxygen, and
Yep.
then it also changes how much oxygen gets to your brain as well.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yes.
that that was me. I was there. I was
Mm-hmm.
feeling that. And when I when they painted that almost like timeline, I was like, okay, that explains why I feel like I can't breathe as well, why it feels
Yeah.
so painful to breathe.
Mm. Mm. And you're making such a good point, which is like there are times when our physical body, I'm sure you've heard of the book, Sharna, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah.
Yeah, infamous. It's a heavy read. If you haven't read it, it's a great read. Definitely pick it up, but it is, I'll warn y'all, it is a heavy read. So prepare yourselves. And but that is a literal, right? There's a literal manifestation, whether it's posture or it's interesting, knee pain, right? Is a big one that moms see because of like pelvic floor shifts and the bones, right? The hip bones. I can't think of the technical terms, but right, the hip bones that are there too, and all connected. The tilts of that, and that there's that physical, and there's also this layer of invisible, if you will, shift that happens after we experience a trauma or a time of really increased heightened stress. And that is something that happens internally, which is the biochemistry changes. And what happens, I want to keep it really simple today so we don't, no one gets bogged down in the weeds of this, but basically, our calcium in the body skyrockets when we experience a trauma. And there's a reason that this happens. And it's because when that calcium goes up like that, it forms a protective shell. And that protective shell, like a hardening, if you will, it is almost like a pause, but it's like communicating to the body, like pause for a moment. And when that happens, emotionally, we become blunted, right? We're not as easily able to connect with our emotions. The example that I give here for people is this makes sense because if you were in a car accident let's say, and you're on the highway and oh my gosh, whoa, this big thing happens. You do not want all of that emotion around what that means and all this, oh my gosh, and now I'm gonna have to pay for this and my insurance is gonna go up and all these conversations you're gonna have. My husband's gonna be so mad, all of that. You don't want that to happen while you're in the middle of the highway, not safe, right? There's cars still moving and lots of things happening. You want to be able, your body wants to be able to get to safety first, right? And so we don't have that flood right there in that moment. It's a protection. Your body is helping to protect you and keep you safe. And so we get to safety, and then maybe within a couple hours or later that day or a couple days later, then ideally, not always, that calcium shell comes down and that flood of emotion wells up. But where you're speaking to is, and what a lot of moms experience for a number of reasons, is that lengthened or extended time period of stress when we get stuck, right? In that place where we're maybe the affect is blunted or we feel like it comes in really heavy waves. And this is an indicator or sign that we haven't yet moved out of that space, because when that calcium comes down, magnesium and potassium are then able to get to where they need to be utilized, which is inside the cell. And that's what helps us deal with the emotion and come back to regulation and be calm again. But what I often see with moms who've experienced traumatic birth or loss is their body isn't willing to get there yet. It's staying stuck in that protective space. It doesn't yet understand, hey, I'm safe and we can deal with this now, or we can let that guard down. And you were mentioning this like physical manifestation, right, of that stuckness. I think that's so important to acknowledge.
Yeah, and I love that you went there because
Mhm.
I often talk, like I felt myself being stuck. And
Yeah.
that I I geek out on stuff. So I love biology.
Yeah,
And
same.
so
Yes.
I'm like, I'm always trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to go to the root cause of something. But when you're stuck in these states, it you almost know that something isn't going to be working 100%. Your body's not working 100% well for you. So you know that you need to move out of these states, but you
Mhm.
also don't know how to do it. But then I
Yeah.
loved that you explained that as well. So it's not only just that we're minimizing how much oxygen or whatever can reach our body, it's also the nutrients that our body needs, the minerals that our body's cells need as well to be able to function.
Mhm.
So it's not just, oh, I'm stuck here. I feel this, but then not doing anything about it. It's okay, I feel this. Okay, how can I help my body move through this? How can I help
Mhm.
nourish myself physically,
Mhm.
mentally, emotionally? Because
Mhm.
being here is actually depriving my body of physically what it needs
Yes.
for me to keep going
Yes.
every day.
Mhm. Absolutely. Like you're saying, when we're in that stressed place, our body's resources are actually used differently, right? And the body is prioritizing survival because it thinks it needs to, right? Over a number of different things, but restorative actions, right? Like our cells, it's a process called autophagy, which like our body getting rid of the dead cells and excreting that. Detox, right, is a big fancy thing in the holistic or wellness community. And like, fine, but can you just detox by yourself first? And to detox, you need to not be in a stress state. You cannot be in that state. So and that's where this comes together, right? Is your practitioner asking you that? Because before you're trying any fancy detoxes, you need to acknowledge that and know, hey, Have you gone through any major stresses or traumas lately? Let's talk about that because we want to make sure that the body is capable of being in the right state before we kind of force or move it into that. Sleep is a huge one, right? I hear so many women struggle with falling asleep, waking up frequently, not being able to fall back asleep. This is also a sign or indicator that your body is still in that freeze or that fight or flight state. And we need to help it move out of that so that we can get the restorative, restful sleep that we need. And guess what? That impacts our mental health greatly, doesn't it? I'm sure everyone out there listening goes, yeah, when I haven't had a good night's sleep, it's hard to think rationally. It's harder to manage my moods. All of these impacts of not getting good sleep.
Yeah. Actually, I had this conversation with someone the other day. I'm like, when you're tired, your ability to do life is really
Mm-hmm.
impacted. You have less
Mm-hmm.
tolerance for things. Stuff that
Mm-hmm.
feels could be simple are big and overwhelming. You
Yes.
don't seem to be able to manage your emotions. Things seem to get under your skin
Mm-hmm.
a lot easier,
Mm-hmm.
and just things feel so much bigger than potentially what they could be.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't, yeah, I can't stress enough, like you said, with sleep. And it's something that I know a lot of lost mums do struggle with as well, because trying to sleep after such an experience is
Yeah.
hard, because as soon as you try to go to sleep, your mind's, oh, what about this? Oh, what about this? And it just keeps
Mhm.
replaying the narrative over and
Yeah.
over. And then you think, oh,
Yes.
what if I did this differently? What if I did that? And then you go into all this, just down all of these different pathways in
Right.
your thought process. One thing that did help me was journaling before bed, because I was
Mhm.
getting everything out of my head onto a piece of paper. I'm like, don't
Exactly.
even, there was no, it was just, I can't carry this to bed. I
Yeah.
can't, my
Yes.
brain is so loud. And then as soon as I did that, I put on a guided sleep scan, because I was like,
Mhm.
also, if it's just music, my brain's going to hype back up again.
Mm.
So
Mm.
listening to someone talk me through
Yeah.
a guided body scan
Mhm.
was super helpful. And then by a certain period, like a few days or a week or whatever, I was actually asleep before the end of the meditation.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And I was like, oh my gosh,
Okay.
this is working. This is working. But
Yes. Yes.
it is absolutely. And I think a lot of things get a bit underestimated in the healing
Mm.
process, with things like that, with nutrition, with being able to
Mhm.
have nourishing your body, giving it the right fuel, allowing
Yeah.
yourself to access good sleep. It can help you
Yes.
make better decisions. It can help you make clearer choices in the day. But also, food affects your mental health, because, like, your gut and your brain are
Mhm.
connected. So,
Yes. Yeah.
again, it's not one or the other, it's
Mhm.
and. And you need
Yes.
to do this, and
Right.
we need to nourish our body and give it what
Mhm.
it needs. And sometimes there are certain foods that you can eat at certain times to help with those
Absolutely.
emotions, or maybe those imbalances.
Yes. Yeah. Such a good point. And the way that I speak about this over and over probably is that tools, right, are so important. You mentioned a couple: journaling, walking, I mean, getting to bed at a reasonable hour, right? Breath work, right? All of these are amazing, important, useful tools. And if our body does not have the raw material that it needs, it cannot implement or connect with the tools. So if my nervous system can only find, let's say like a 10 is like super activated, right? And my goal, I'm like, I want to get to a zero, a one, right? I want to be chill down there. But my body doesn't have, say, the magnesium. in order for that to happen, to bring that nervous system down, I can only, with the tools, get to 5. Now, certainly that's better than the 10, but it's not going to get me right to the goal that I want to get to. And that's what we're talking about here, right? Is and I want to say too, I can imagine as a mom who's just had a loss or even just had a baby, going, what? Like, I can't add another thing in, right? I can't take care of myself in another way. Find yourself someone who's been there, right? Who goes, oh, I get it, right? And I'm not going to ask you to overhaul your entire life this week. That is not this is not the time for that. And that is not practical, right? And I help clients, right, step by step. Let's add, right, slowly think something that feels practical, something that feels manageable to you. For example, can you take one meal? Usually I start with breakfast, right? Can you start at breakfast and can you add in one nourishing food? Right? Maybe it's this is one of my favorites. I love my carbs, right? Especially in luteal phase. Girls want I want all the carbs. But I know that is not going to be the processed bagel is not going to be the most helpful thing for my body. And so, can I take that out and can I instead prep some sweet potatoes? Because that is just as satisfying to me. Whether it's I baked them the weekend before in the oven and it's now a baked sweet potato and I'm going to slap some grass fed butter and some delicious salt on there. Oh my gosh, so delicious. Or can I maybe I was eating a lot of oatmeal this week. Can I take that and instead replace that with some eggs with feta cheese and some bacon because that's delicious and nourishing and it makes my body happy, right? And it also is giving me more minerals, more vitamins when I do that. Right. So this is what I talk about with clients in sessions is let's not get overwhelmed and feel like we have to do it all because you don't. But can we start with one practical thing and just make small tweaks to something that is nourishing but also delicious? I don't want to take away all the things that bring you joy and the zeal, the zest of life. Let's just find ways to work with what you're already doing that is going to be supportive to your physical and mental health.
Yeah, and you almost feel it instantly when you start to shift your
Mm,
nutrition. You do also then start to see a difference in your mental health, your clarity, the way that you
100%.
think, the the exhaustion that you're feeling. Like it just
Yeah.
seems to just go. And then you're like, oh, that wasn't too hard. But then it
Yes.
is that 1% or that little change, and it's
Yeah.
not, oh, gotta just eat this whole hippo in one meal. Gotta just eat, do everything. I've got to go to yoga
Mhm.
and do breath work and eat differently and
Mhm.
all of the things.
Mhm.
You don't have to consume the whole thing. What is start in one part of your life? Okay, what is this 1%
Mhm.
change that I can make in the right direction? And like you said, finding someone who can support you in that, because sometimes that in itself
Mhm.
going, I need to change. I'm feeling all of this stuff, but I don't know where to start. Finding people who can support you, maybe like you said, finding someone who's been on that path that can
Mhm.
give you some suggestions, but just knowing, if you're going to take anything away from today, just knowing that your whole body is communicating with you. There
Yeah.
isn't just a one thing that's going to work. It is
Yeah.
like you said, it's an and. You just add
Yes.
things to that, but you're starting
Mhm.
small. You don't have to consume the whole thing all at
Yeah.
once. A-
Yes.
And I think too, it's not just also going, oh, magnesium's going to help my nervous system, or go down to the health food shop and get magnesium. Tara, I feel like I could literally talk to you for days, weeks, months, and I know that you do have a life to get back to. Is there anything you wanted to leave the listeners with in terms of awareness, information, and then also where they can find you?
Yeah. So I think the number one thing that I'd say is that's what we were hinting at is you do not have to do it all at once. And take one thing that feels reasonable, that feels accessible for you today. If it's going to therapy, if it's finding community or a group of women because you're noticing you're isolated, if it's finding a support group focused on loss, maybe it's, oh man, the nutrition piece, the minerals really resonated with me. I would like to focus, right, on maybe getting more sunshine in my eyeballs because I know that'll help. Maybe I'm getting out in nature more, or adding more protein to my breakfast, or maybe I'm going to take some magnesium or do some magnesium bath flakes in my bath to help my nervous system settle. Pick one thing, right? And start there. And as you were saying, Sharna, even sometimes with that one thing, we'll start to notice like, ooh, wait, hold on, right? Yeah, this does feel better. I do feel good. This is supportive to those layers of who I am. So that's what I'm going to say. And yes, please connect. I love, if you couldn't tell, I'm a very social creature. I'm an extrovert. So please reach out to me. Where I'm probably most active is on Instagram. And my Instagram name is atara.parkinson. If you're more interested in that NICU realm, I was hinting on that a little bit earlier today in my experience. My kind of birth trauma focus page is at NICU Freedom. And that's where I talk more about that aspect of my work. You can also reach out through my website if that's and it feels safer for you. And that's just my name, ataraparkinson.com. And you can also find me there.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. You have shared so much today, and I know there's probably
Mm.
so much more that we could still talk about, but what I know what we've shared, someone will resonate with that, be able to take something away, and I trust and believe that. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
so much, and all of your details will be in the show notes. So if anyone does want to find you, please, I invite you to reach out to Atara, even if it's just to open up the conversation and send her a DM.
I love it. Yes,
It's so fun.
absolutely.
But I do really appreciate you, Atara, for your time today. It
Yeah.
is a longer episode, but I do really appreciate you. Thank you.
Same, Sharna. Thank you so much. Yeah, a new friendship started today, I think. Yeah,
Absolutely, definitely. And
I love it.
all the way
Beautiful.
from Australia to the States.
Wonderful. All righty. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Sharna.
Yes,
So good to meet you today.
absolutely. Likewise.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for listening in with me today. I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Take a screenshot of this episode, share it to social media, and tag me at Institute of Healing_PL. I love seeing what is resonating with you right now. If you want to chat further, I invite you to connect with me through Instagram. Head over and follow my Instagram account, send me a DM, and let's open the communication. If you want to know more about how you can be the support for others, head to the show notes and fill out the application form for the Pregnancy Loss Practitioner certification. I want to also note here that what I share within the episodes is not medical advice. If you need further support, please consult your doctor. Thank you again. Much love to you. Be gentle with yourself, and I look forward to supporting you on the next episode.